Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I'm Darshan Usman. The top stories this hour. Senate's Ethics Committee Chair defends committee's decision to recommend the suspension of Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. Governor Fubara invites Speaker Amaewhule Assembly members for crucial meeting. Former Guinean Prime Minister's lawyer insists on his innocence amidst allegations of financial misconduct. Details of these stories and more coming up shortly. News Central now at this hour begins in Rivers State, where the State Governor Siminalayi Fubara has invited Speaker Martins Amaewhule and other members of the Rivers State House of Assembly to a crucial meeting at Government House, Port Harcourt. Now, this marks the first official address from Fubara to Amaewhule as the Assembly Speaker. The invitation, dated March 7, follows the Governor's acknowledgement of the Supreme Court's judgment in his March 5th letter. The meeting will cover key issues including providing a suitable space for the Assembly sittings, addressing outstanding remunerations, presenting the budget, and other critical matters. The lawmakers are scheduled to meet the governor on Monday, March 10 at 10 a.m. local time. Let's now head to the Parliament, where the chairman of the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions, Senator Neda Imaswen, has defended the committee's decision to recommend the suspension of Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. In an International Women's Day message made available to News Central, Imaswen clarified that the committee's recommendation was strictly based on Akpoti-Uduaghan's conduct during plenary on February 20th and had no connection to his sexual harassment allegations against Senate President Godswill Akpabio. Senator Imaswen explained that while harassment allegations are serious matters that deserve investigation, the Ethics Committee had no jurisdiction over the claims since they are already before the courts. He stressed that the suspension was in line with Senate rules, adding that the decision was not about silencing anyone, but about ensuring accountability and preserving the Senate's integrity. In the meantime, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has cautioned critics against making uninformed comments on the affairs of the upper legislative chamber. Akpabio issued the warning when he received a delegation from the Niger Delta Ethics Nationalities Youth Leaders Forum in Abuja. His remarks followed the recent suspension of Kogi Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan for violating Senate rules, a decision that Akpabio emphasized was unanimously supported by lawmakers. Expressing concern over a perceived trend of uniform or uninformed commentaries on television and social media, Akpabio urged the public to understand parliamentary rules before engaging in debates. He dismissed the saga as an attempt to undermine his leadership, attributing recent criticisms to political mischief from people who he claimed lacked knowledge of Senate procedures. In the same vein, the political feud between Senate President Godswill Akpabio and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan of Kogi Central has intensified following her 6-month suspension from the Senate. Akpabio accused Akpoti-Uduaghan of traumatizing others with baseless allegations, while the Kogi lawmaker fired back, insisting she was not the first to accuse him of sexual harassment and calling for an independent investigation. Tensions between the two lawmakers erupted publicly 2 weeks ago during plenary when Akpoti-Uduaghan rejected a directive to relocate her seat, telling Akpabio she would not be intimidated. The dispute escalated when she appeared on a live television program the following day, repeating her allegations against the Senate President. Last week, the Senate, acting on a recommendation from its Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions, suspended Akpoti-Uduaghan for 6 months. The decision has triggered widespread outrage, with rights groups and activists demanding a fair hearing for the embattled senator. Now to discuss this, we're joined by a lawyer and a public affairs analyst, Vincent Otapopo. Hello, Vincent. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, a wonderful audience.
All right, Vincent, now let's hear from you. Do you think that the Senate has the legal authority to suspend a senator based on conduct during plenary? What precedent, exists for such actions?
Yes, thank you for the question. The purported suspension of Senator Natasha has provoked and exciting scholarship disputations, ranging from contentious issues and responses. Anywhere you go in the court of public opinion, newspaper stand, that is on the lips of every Nigerian. There is no authority on the part of the Senate to suspend a legislature validly elected by the people of Nigeria, whom the person seeks to represent. The Supreme Court and Nigerian Judiciary, the 1999 Constitution frowns at it, and the such suspension, to all intent and purposes, is not only repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience, but incompatible with the provisions of the Constitution and the established principles of law, ranging from decided cases by the Supreme Court and Court of Appeal, which forms part of sources of law in Nigeria. Section 4, subsection 8 of the 1999 Constitution provides, save as provided in this Constitution, the exercise of legislative powers of National Assembly or State Assembly shall be subject to the jurisdiction of the court, as the case may be. So the court has the power to conduct inquiry, and whatever they do in the National Assembly is subject to legislative powers of the court. Now, the Supreme Court of Nigeria and the Court of Appeal, in litany and cornucopia of cases, have handled situation of this and pronounced the absence of authority, legislative competence, and legislative powers of the National Assembly, be it Senate or Assembly or a representative, to suspend a legislative member. In the case of Dino Malaya versus Senate of the National Assembly, remember there was he was suspended and he approached the court. The Court of Appeal held in a unanimous decision that the National Assembly lacks the power, the Senate, to suspend the senator outside the due process of the law as outlined under the rules of the Assembly, of the Senate. In the case of Alain Dume versus Senate of National Assembly, it's also the court brought to bear their characteristics, industry, and excellent scholarship in pronouncing and reaffirming and reiterating the powers of the National Assembly and the Senate per se lacks the power to suspend a member validly elected by the people for a period exceeding 14 days, because in that case it was also suspended for 6 months. Yeah. The court pronounced and said that the power does not belong to the National Assembly. Then you have the case of Elisha, that is the sex toy case, as the case may be, against the Senate of National Assembly. It was also suspended. I went to court. The same principle was pronounced. Then of them all was the case of Omo Agege versus Senate of National Assembly. Remember the issue of getting the talks to attack the National Assembly and snatching the maize and all those stuff. The matter traveled to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court reiterated this position that the power to suspend does not lie in National Assembly. Yes, you can exercise your disciplinary action against a member for erring or wanting or the other, but that does not include suspending the person up to the point of 6 months. You can suspend for 14 days, as the case may be. But moreover, you cannot even suspend because the man is not your employee. The man is a representative of the people. When you suspend him, you are denying his constituent and people that have validly elected him the right to be represented, which is constitutionally granted. The recent case of Speaker Bauchi State of House of Assembly versus Honorable Vincent, is a clear case of where the court have demonstrated this principle and said that is.
If you can hear me, Vincent,
the lady was suspended.
If you can hear me, with all that you've said, they have no authority to suspend because the senator was elected by the people. Could Senator Natasha challenge her suspension in court? Is it possible? And on what legal grounds would she be able to do that?
Yes, Section 46 of the 1999 Constitution says that he who feels his right has been infringed or is likely to be infringed should approach the court for redress. He has right to represent his people, which is a constitutionally granted right. And nobody, by Senate or by their rules or by proceedings or whatever accusation, can deprive her of such constitutional rights that belongs to her. Now, beyond this point, I've started Section 4, Sub 8, that have given the court power to conduct inquiry over all legislative actions and activities as the case may be. Senator Natasha has a right to approach court, and you know that a matter has been filed. She has filed a matter in court against the Senate President, Senate of National Assembly, Chairman of the Ethics and the Privileges Committee, and the court gave an order stopping the National Assembly or the Senate from proceeding with any disciplinary action against Senator Natasha. But they disobeyed the court in flagrant disobedience to the court order and went ahead to suspend it. We have always said that in a democracy like ours, rule of law must triumph not only in our legal system but in our body politics. Parties to litigation must accept the decision of the court and orders of court in good faith, subject only to appeal processes available in law. And no party should employ self-help to disparage or disrespect the order of the court. Natasha has the right to approach court because his right has been infringed, and you know the court has said that if the plaintiff has a right like Natasha, he must have a means to vindicate it and remedy. If he is injured in the exercise or enjoyment of his right, for want of right and want of remedy are reciprocal. Like we say in our judicial palace, ibi jus, ibi remedium. Where there is right, there is remedy. So the right to represent his people is granted. The right to have to punish her without being heard is also granted by the Constitution. She can approach the court, which I know she has done, to ventilate his anger. And I know the court will award damages and remedies as the case may be.
Okay. Now, so what about, the Senate Ethics Committee distancing itself from sexual harassment allegations against, the Senate President, Akpabio? Do you have any thoughts on that, or are there implications to them distancing themselves from that?
It is quite it has no legal value. It has no legal basis. If they distance themselves, it has no justification. It has no legal effect whatsoever. The deed has been done. They have carried out the action. They quickly, purportedly conducted an inquiry without the person accused represented by a lawyer of his choice or by herself, as granted by Section 36 of the Constitution, which says, in the determination of civil right and obligation, a person shall be granted right to free hearing within a reasonable time by any authority or quasi court, anybody exercising quasi judicial function. She was not accorded that right. So they cannot distance themselves. It's an afterthought. It's a mere statement of fact, does not have any value in law. The fact remains that she was suspended in flagrant disobedience to the provisions of the Constitution. The Senate itself violated their rules. Yes, I appreciate that the standing rule 40 sub 4 of the rules of the Senate says that she cannot sign petition by herself, which she went back and represented another petition signed by another fellow. That also activates the duty of the committee to conduct inquiry on that petition. Now, the Senate also violated their standing rule 41 sub 7, which says when a matter is pending in court, that the Senate shall not conduct inquiry or even take any action to discipline member when such inquiry or actions have been pending in court. Especially when there is a pending court order that have stopped them from proceeding. But they disobeyed the court order in a flagrant disobedience to our democracy and constitutional democracy and rule of law, and proceeded to punish the fellow without recourse to judicial power and secretarial powers as enshrined in Section 4, Section 5, and Section 6 of the Constitution. The right of the legislative powers, executive power, and judicial power established by the Constitution. So their statement is not of no moment. It has no legal value and does not enjoy any popularity.
All right, Vincent, but does this case raise concerns about, gender-based discrimination or even retaliation in legislative bodies?
Yes, we begin to question, like yesterday, we celebrated International Women's Day. It is a day assigned to celebrate our mothers, our sisters, our aunties, the senators there, including Senator Natasha. So this also raises the question as to the place of women in Nigerian politics. If their voice can be cowed, if their voice can be suppressed, if their voice can be relegated to the background in a hollow chamber that is protected and established by law, what we have to say again? How much more the right of a market woman, the Wuse market, if such right can be denied to an elected senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, how much more the market women? So it leaves much to be desired that in a century where we are celebrating women globally and where other countries have gone beyond where we are, to where women are, occupying sensitive position in the World Trade Organization and United Nations sensitive offices by women from Nigeria here, and back home here, we have women being denied their right to even air their view, even air their what have you. Yes, sexual harassment allegation is there. If you feel that you have been accused wrongly or that you have been defamed, approach a court that says that doesn't have to defend my character and what have you. Then open up a discussion, open up a hearing where she will be able to ventilate her grievances. The Senate President was also, let me digress a bit, sorry. The Senate President is also acting as a judge in his own case. The principles of Nemo Judas and Kasasua and Audrey Trempaten, which is the two pillars of justice established by the court, which means Nemo Judas and Kasasua, you cannot be a judge in your own case, and the Audrey Trempaten hear the both sides. This principle was established in the case of Arwages Chancellor University of Cambridge by Lord Fatungun, that in the old age, which Supreme Court of Nigeria have adopted. And the judge said, I remember that I've had it observed by the learned man upon such occasion that even God did not pass descent upon Adam. For God said, Adam, why have you eaten the forbidden fruit? God, as omniscient, knew what Adam did was wrong. I have seen it. But God was calling Adam. God was calling Adam to be heard, to air his view, to say to cover his defense. So the Senate President.
All right, Vincent. Well, time is not on our side at the moment, Vincent. Well, thank you so much for taking your time and for speaking on this.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Moving away from that, following the call for the resignation of the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, over alleged or allegations of sexual harassment by suspended Kogi lawmaker Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, a coalition of several pro-Akpabio groups have called for caution, warning the Senate not to set a dangerous precedent. Now, the groups, while speaking to newsmen in Abuja, also called on the Senate to disregard the petition by Akpoti-Uduaghan, saying it holds no proof, and called on the lawmaker to retract the allegations while tendering an unreserved apology to the Senate.
For the resignation of the President of the Nigerian Senate, we must be careful not to set a dangerous precedent for our dear country. Does it mean that if I want the governor of my state to step aside, I could simply cause a similar allegation against him and expect him to resign? We must tread with caution. We therefore sound this stern warning to Natasha's co-travelers to quit undermining the leadership of Nigeria's legislature or face the wrath of the Nigerian public. We demand that Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan immediately retract her false allegations and apologize to the Senate President and the institution as a whole. The Senate is not a nightclub. I repeat, the Senate, the Nigerian Senate, is not a nightclub. We must protect the dignity.
We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll tell you how NAFDAC seizes destroyed counterfeit drugs worth 100 billion naira in Ibadan. Details of this and more after the break. Stay with us. Now let's head to the courts, where the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice John Toho, has reassigned the case of IPOB leader Nnamdi Kano to a new judge. Kano's legal team had pushed for this change, opposing the return of the case to Justice Binta Nyako after her recusal. Lead counsel Aloy Ejimako confirmed the development, revealing that they received official letters from the Chief Justice of Nigeria and the Chief Judge on Friday. Kano, convinced of his innocence, expressed gratitude to the CJN for his swift intervention. His legal team says they are now focused on preparing for his defense, emphasizing the importance of a fair and speedy trial. Earlier, a lawyer and public affairs analyst, Justice Ojieno, spoke to us on this development.
It's something that they have already expressed their happiness about, because we usually say that justice is a three-way street, especially when it's criminal justice, as in this case, justice as perceived by the defense, justice as perceived by the prosecution, and justice as perceived by the public, the people generally. And it used to be just two, because the defense was very, very disappointed, and they did not hide their disappointment. They came frontally to say that they were not happy about the constitution of the courts, and it was headed by Justice Binta and Harcourt for reasons which they stated. But now I'm very, very happy that at least they have been granted the request of another judge, even though the name of the new judge has not been announced yet. So I'm very happy that at least, however it goes, everybody will be to a large extent satisfied that it was actually a neutral judge, a neutral justice, a neutral referee that decided based on the evidence.
Women in media are calling for greater recognition and inclusion in decision-making process. Now, this comes as the International Women's Day 2025 is marked over the weekend. Under the theme, Accelerate Action, the conference this year urges authorities to not only include women in policy-making efforts, but to speed up efforts towards gender equality. Our correspondent, Bernard Akede, has the details.
International Women's Day serves as both a celebration of women's achievements and a reminder of the ongoing challenges they face. Across the globe, the month of March sees women's rights groups amplifying their calls for inclusion, equity, and justice. In Nigeria, women in media have added their voices to this movement, emphasizing the urgent need for change.
That woman that, has been through a lot and nobody has celebrated her, and, letting the world know that, yes, she has arrived. So, basically, the International Women's Day, it's always a day for women in media to also join voices with the women all over the world to celebrate them. And of course, the topic for this year's celebration is Accelerate Action, 50-50.
From workplace discrimination to unequal opportunities in various professions, women continue to push against barriers that limit their growth. These concerns were front and center at the event.
For civil defense, if you watch quite well, you will find out that we will be one of the foremost, if not the foremost, in everything. Even our women are openly combatant, and you see us with our arms, unafraid and unashamed of that.
Beyond professional settings, the plight of vulnerable women, especially widows, was also highlighted. Many widows in African communities are left without support, facing social and economic hardship with little intervention. Speakers at the conference called on relative agencies to step in.
Churches that have been told to take care of widows as their first assignment, which is a pure religion, James 1:27, the church also has failed widows. Government has no record of widows in Lagos or Nigeria. You mentioned that they should put them in positions or somewhere. No, widows don't need to be put in the ministries. What they need to do at every local government in Nigeria is know the number of widows that are in every local government. I have clamored for a widows commission in the past 15 years. Nothing has been done. I've written about it. Nothing has been done. I hope one day, let's just make sure that widows are well treated, are cared for.
Advocates insist that discussions like these must translate into concrete actions, ensuring that women's voices are not just heard, but that real change follows.
Time where women will be given more power, more opportunity to be in leadership positions. We're talking about giving women the power to do more. You know, gone are the days when, you know, they used to say that a woman's place is relegated to the kitchen, to some other places. But over time, we have shown that we have gone beyond all of that. And we are saying we can do better. How many women are in the Senate? How many women? You know, so that's what we are saying. And I remember starting something, accelerate action 50-50. It has to be 50-50. It can be 50-50. And like I said, leadership is not by gender. Being a leader has nothing to do whether you are a man or a woman. It's about what you have upstairs.
The hope is that this year's conversations will not be just another round of discussions, but a catalyst of meaningful progress in women's rights and representation. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akidu.
Still in celebration of Women's Day, the Ministry of Women Affairs has dismissed claims that victims of sexual violence in a shelter home have been abandoned. Now, this was stated in a statement released by Jonathan Eze, Special Advisor on Media and Publicity to the Honorable Minister. A viral video alleged neglect, but the ministry insists it has been providing financial, medical, and psychosocial or psychological support. On December 14, Minister Iman Suleiman Ibrahim visited a safe space in Abuja, providing psychosocial support, stipends, food, and medical care. Survivors later received support packages for long-term housing and economic stability. The ministry continues to assist a survivor in need, offering temporary shelter and financial aid. It also partners with organizations to improve shelter, care, and rehabilitation policies. The ministry urges the public to disregard the video, calling it misleading and untrue. The news returns after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Now, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, destroyed counterfeit drugs at the Monio dump site in Akinyele local government area of Oyo State. NAFDAC Director General Professor Judicial said the counterfeit drugs worth 100 billion naira were confiscated from pharmaceutical drug marketers in Idumota Market, Lagos. She noted that the step became necessary to prevent the reintroduction of expired, fake, substandard, and falsified drugs into circulation. Speaking during the burning exercise, Adeyeye said NAFDAC, as the lead agency and chair of the Federal Task Force on Fake and Counterfeit Drugs and Unwholesome Processed Foods, is firmly committed to ensuring that food, drugs, cosmetics, medical devices, chemicals, packaged water, and drinks are safe, wholesome, and effective for human consumption. The Kano State Police Command says that it has arrested 4 suspected bandits from neighboring Katsina states. Speaking to journalists at the command's headquarters in Bompai, Kano, the state's police public relations officer, Haruna Kiawa, says the sum of 1,028,800 naira was recovered from the suspects, meant for the purchase of an AK-47 rifle. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
Despite the reduction in crimes bordering on insecurity in Kano State, several cases relating to terrorism are still recorded. These dangerous weapons and cash were allegedly recovered from 4 suspected terrorists arrested around the Hotoro area of the state. The police says that the terrorists are currently in detention but won't be shown on camera.
Detectives, while on intelligence-led surveillance patrol, led by a Superintendent of Police, Ahmad Muhammad, the officer in charge of Jerkuka outpost, intercepted 4 suspected bandits along Hotoro bypass near Chula filling station. These suspects were arrested. We have Shukurana Salihu, 25 years old, Rabiu Dahiru, 35 years old, Yao Idris, 30 years old, all from Katsina State, as well as their accomplice, one Mukhtar Sani, 30 years old of Hotoro quarters, Kano. These suspects were arrested following credible intelligence information that they came to Kano with intent to buy an AK-47 rifle in order to add to their armory.
The public relations officer of the state, Haruna Kiawa, listed items recovered from the suspect, saying that investigations concerning the suspect will be discreet.
We have 3 locally made revolver pistols, 12 live ammunition of different calibers, 4 cartridges, 1 cutlass, 4 knives, 24 pieces of ball bearings called Boris, cash sum of 1,028,800 naira, as well as these suspected charms. These suspects are currently at the Command's Criminal Investigations Department, State CID here in Bombay, and they are undergoing discreet investigation, after which they will be charged to court for prosecution.
Kiawa commended the public for cooperating with the police and called for more synergy to end insecurity in the state. In Kano for News Central, Emmanuel Bagudu.
Coming up after the break, authorities in DR Congo offer $5 million bounties for rebel leaders' arrest. We'll tell you more after the break. Join us again. The news continues in Central Africa, where the United Nations Humanitarian Agency reports a rise in attacks on hospitals and civilian infrastructure in eastern DRC amid the ongoing assaults by the armed group M23. Backed by Rwandan troops, M23 has made significant advances since January, capturing key cities like Goma and Bukavu, displacing hundreds of thousands between March 1 and 3rd. Several hospitals were targeted, escalating violence against medical centers and personnel. Security in Goma has deteriorated with a surge in criminal activity, while schools and hospitals have been forced to close in other areas. The conflict has also led to civilian casualties, with over 100,000 people displaced in Lubero. The DRC government accuses Rwanda of supporting M23, a claim Rwanda denies, citing its own security concerns. Still in the country, the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo has offered $5 million in rewards for information leading to the arrest of 3 leaders of the M23 rebel group, which has captured large parts of eastern DRC this year. The bounties target Corneille Nanga, Sultani Makenga, and Bertrand Bisimwa, all of whom have been prosecuted in absentia and sentenced to death for treason. The DRC military has struggled against the Rwanda-backed rebels who have seized key cities like Goma and Bukavu. The government is also seeking international pressure on Rwanda, accusing it of looting DRC's valuable minerals, including gold and coltan. Rwanda denies the allegations, but acknowledges supporting M23 to prevent the conflict from spilling over its border. The legal team of former Guinean Prime Minister Ibrahim Akasori Fofana has denied all allegations of financial misconduct following his 5-year prison sentence for embezzlement of public funds. Speaking to journalists, attorney Dina Sampil insisted that evidence exists to prove Fofana's innocence, refuting the charges brought against him. Fofana, who served as Prime Minister from 2018 until the September 2021 military coup, has been incarcerated since April 2022. He was convicted by Guinea's Special Court for Financial Crimes, a body set up by the ruling military government to investigate corruption cases. In addition to his sentence, Judge Lassana Suma ruled that Fofana must pay a fine of 2 million Guinean francs and 18 billion Guinean francs in damages and interest.
Cette intervention doit être considérée comme la réplique à celle qu'a jugé nécessaire de faire Monsieur le procureur spécial auprès de la CRIEF, qui, aussitôt après le prononcé de la décision, a estimé faire une sortie dans la presse pour commenter cette décision. J'ai retenu personnellement qu'il a regretté le fait que ce ne soit que 5 ans d'après les termes qui soient prononcés contre notre client. Ce qui me fait penser que si la Guinée disposait du dispositif de la guillotine, Monsieur le procureur spécial n'aurait pas hésité un seul instant à envoyer Monsieur Kassori Fofana à cette machine de destruction vitale. Vous allez constater que la décision qui a été rendue par laquelle Kassori Fofana a été condamné repose essentiellement sur ce qu'il a appelé le constat du refus de
Shelling by Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces has killed 7 civilians and wounded 23 others in the city of El Obeid on Sunday. Now, the city, retaken by the army after a prolonged RSF siege last month, came under heavy bombardment, including an attack on a public transport bus. This marks the 3rd consecutive day of RSF attacks on the city, which is strategically located at a crossroads linking the capital Khartoum to Darfur. The ongoing conflict between Sudan's army and the RSF, which began in April 2023, has resulted in tens of thousands of deaths, millions displaced, and a severe humanitarian crisis. The United States has ordered all non-emergency staff to leave South Sudan, citing escalating tensions and rising risks in the country. Now, this move comes as clashes between forces allied to President Salva Kiir and First Vice President Riek Machar threatened the fragile power-sharing agreement established after the 2013-2018 civil war. On Friday, a UN helicopter was attacked during a rescue mission, resulting in the death of a crew member and an army general. The U.S. State Department highlighted ongoing armed conflicts and ethnic violence as key concerns. International observers have raised alarms with the UN warning of an alarming regression in peace efforts and the International Crisis Group fearing the country may be heading towards full-scale war and ethnic massacres. Still in South Sudan Security Agency has confirmed that the recent wave of high-profile arrests in the capital, Juba, is directly tied to the escalating violence gripping the country. Now, over the past week, authorities have detained key government officials, including the peace-building minister, oil minister, and the deputy head of the army, all close allies of First Vice President Riek Machar. The arrests have sparked concerns over the fragile peace deal between President Salva Kiir and Machar, long-time rivals whose factions have frequently clashed. Adding to tensions, violent confrontations between Kiir and Machar-aligned forces in Upper Nile State have further destabilized the situation. International observers, including the UN Mission and Commission on Human Rights in South Sudan, have warned that the renewed fighting in the northeast threatens to derail years of peace efforts in the country. Still ahead, Israeli Finance Minister confirms controversial plan to displace Gazans is taking place. Details after the break. Outside the African continent, Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich says U.S. President Donald Trump's controversial plan to displace Gazans is taking shape. Now, the remarks have raised significant concerns about the future of Gaza's population, as the plan reportedly involves large-scale relocations. While details remain unclear, critics argue that it could lead to severe humanitarian consequences for Palestinians. The statement comes amidst ongoing tensions in the region, with many questioning the long-term implications for peace. As the plan develops, international attention is intensifying, with human rights groups calling for transparency and adherence to international law.
אני אומר לכם, אנחנו שם. זו תוכנית שקורמת עור וגידים. יש פעולה עכשיו מול הממשל, אני באופן טבעי לא יכול להיכנס לפרטים, לאתר את המדינות, לאתר את האינטרסים של המדינות עם ארצות הברית, איתנו, לייצר את אותו שיתוף פעולה. יש היערכות להקמת מנהלת הגירה גדולה מאוד במשרד הביטחון, כי בסוף זה מבצע לוגיסטי ענק, רק כדי לסבר את האוזן. אם נוציא 10,000 איש ביום, 7 ימים בשבוע, זה לוקח חצי שנה. אם נוציא 5,000 ביום, זה לוקח שנה. שוב, זה כמובן אחרי שיש מדינות, אבל אלה תהליכים מאוד מאוד ארוכים. אני חושב שכולנו מבינים שזה לא עוד אירוע, זה פוטנציאל לשינוי היסטורי של המזרח התיכון ושל מדינת ישראל. אני אמרתי לאנשים של הנשיא בשבוע שעבר, ואני אומר את זה לראש הממשלה כל הזמן, יש לנו הזדמנות להביא לסוף הסכסוך.
In the world of sports, Nigeria's para-badminton sensation, Mariam Eniola Bolaji, emerged victorious at the 2025 Spanish Para-Badminton International, defeating Ukraine's Oksana Zosina 4-1 in the WSSL3 final. Ranked second in the world, Bolaji showcased her dominance throughout the tournament. She breezed through the semi-finals with a commanding 21-12, 21-6 win over India's Niraj, setting the stage for her final triumph. Her outstanding performance in Spain further cements her status as one of the sport's elite athletes. This latest victory adds to a growing list of achievements, reinforcing her position as a strong contender on the international stage and a leading figure in para-badminton. Senegal reaffirmed its wrestling dominance by defeating Nigeria 4-1 in the team final to claim gold at the 13th ECOWAS African Wrestling Tournament in Abuja. And despite falling short, Nigeria improved from third place in 2023 to finish as runners-up in their debut as tournament hosts. The competition, held from March 6 to 8, 2025, featured 11 nations and marked ECOWAS's 50th anniversary. Benin secured third place with a 5-0 win over Guinea, while former champions Niger and Burkina Faso were absent. In individual events, Nigeria's Ebipate Liembofa and Ebi Bigos won gold, but Senegal dominated heavyweight categories. The champions earned $10,000, with Nigeria and Benin receiving $6,000 and $3,000 respectively. Still talking sports, Rivers Hoopers have re-signed star guard Kelvin Amaewhule, strengthening their squad ahead of the 2025 Basketball Africa League. Amaewhule played a key role in the Hoopers' third-place finish in 2024, averaging 16 points, 6.7 assists, 5.3 rebounds, and 2.2 steals per game. Now, his performances earned him spots on the Ball second, that's the team, and Ball All-Defense second team. In November, he led the Hoopers to the Nigeria Premier Basketball League title, securing their BAL qualification and winning league MVP. A two-time BAL bronze medalist, Amaewhule is the club's first signing for the new season. Rivers Hoopers will begin their 2025 BAL campaign on April 5th against Stade Malien in Rabat, Morocco. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. You heard that Senate Ethics Committee Chair Defense Committee's decision to recommend the suspension of Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. You also heard that Governor Fubara invites Speaker Amaewhule Assembly members for crucial meeting. We also told you that former Guinean Prime Minister's lawyer insists on his innocence amidst allegations of financial misconduct. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Go TV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.